This is episode 101 of Think Big with Michael Zellner. All positive, no politics. There is plenty of negativity out there, but you're not going to find that here. You're going to get messages, uplifting messages, motivational, inspirational, and hopefully you'll be able to take something away from my guest today. Joining me today for episode 101 is Ilyse Craft. She is a mental fitness coach and the owner of Ilyse Craft Coaching. She's a, quote, super coach online business training for UpperLimit coaches who are elite, grounded, and in a class of their own, unquote. She went to school at the University of Arizona, where she studied business and fashion merchandising. She is a corporate dropout who decided that she had much more to give to people, and she's gone after it. In just a few short years, she is doing just spectacularly well with her new business and helped a lot of people to become successful too. She says, quote, "My sole mission is to help others win," unquote. Ilyse, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, you're welcome. That was so awesome. I love that. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Tell us something interesting about yourself most people don't know.
Most people do not know that I am actually a total introvert. And I have left so far out of what was, I guess, my comfort zone to create this next chapter of my life. And it's been a real whirlwind of a ride. But that's usually people are surprised to hear that when they get to know me and they're like, wow, you're actually kind of shy and you're kind of a homebody. And I am. Yeah.
So that makes your decision, what you did, and the change you made in your life a few years ago, even bigger. What an even bigger accomplishment for someone who's an introvert.
Yeah, completely. I thought to myself, I'm watching these people and they're making these videos and like, how am I ever going to do this? Like, how am I going to do this? And it is a really big block for a lot of people starting out, is putting themselves out there, and this concept of being a personal brand. It's like,
right.
I just want to help people. I don't really need to be a brand. I just want to help people. But it's part of the journey of people learning from all over the world who I am. And it was a real conscious decision to do it. And I've done it.
And so many people are afraid to take that step to get out of their comfort zone in today's world. I mean, we see a lot of people, they put out there on social media what they want people to see, a lot of times. And, a lot of times you don't see the real person. So for you to step out of your comfort zone and do what you're doing, you got to be so proud of yourself. So congratulations. That's wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I will tell you that in the 3 years of writing content, making videos, the videos and the content that converts and connects and grows community the most is when I'm talking about real life things.
Right.
And, so to your point, there is a lot of very curated content. We're all curating. I'm curating, sharing that piece, but I also know that by letting people know that, along the path of doing something great, there could be some difficulty and some hardship. I was fired from my corporate job. So that leap was more like a push.
Right.
Because, so that was hard, being in my 50s and getting fired from a job that I was, got great accolades for doing, and then had that happen. But I really did see that as a huge opportunity, because I was side hustling. I was doing both.
Right.
And I might still be doing both had I not had that gift in a really good package,
Very, very true. You started off your career after college as a buyer in the fashion industry and worked for several different companies over your 25 plus years in the business. You became a manager and a leader in that industry. I mean, not just a buyer, but you were responsible for multi-million dollars of sales a year. I know that you were a little organizer when you were a kid and you loved to decorate. Is that a big reason why you chose to go into that field? And, and also, what did you learn most about yourself during all those years in that business?
Wow, you are a heck of a researcher. I'm
Oh, thank
so
you.
impressed.
Thank you.
Um, I I did want to go into interior design, and it felt too big and too hard and too long of a road. And at that time in my life, in my 20s, I wanted it and I wanted it now. And the fashion world was sort of the complement to interior design, only we're designing this,
All right.
the head to toe experience. And so I rationalized like, okay, that feels good, but I never left home decor as my passion and a love. And now I have an Airbnb business where I create experiences through people staying at my house. So I never lost that, even though my career was in fashion. But it's similar, it's the creation of something that doesn't exist, and it starts in your mind's eye, and then you make it happen.
I owned a mattress and furniture business, two different ones here in Memphis for, about 18, 19 years. And for some reason, I don't know where I got it from. I guess it started when I was a kid. I used to like figuring out how I wanted to set up my room and decorate it certain ways, and I would change it up all the time. But I was really good at, figuring out decorating and helping people out, even though I wasn't interior design. I don't know. Is it maybe just something that we have when we're younger? It just comes out of us. What do you think?
It's such a great question because same, and I don't know if it's a combination of also understanding, like you just said, you move things around and you change it up. And it's sort of like you move the energy of a room when you
Yeah.
flip the furniture around, or you take those accessories and put them in the bedroom and switch it all up. And all of a sudden it feels like, wow, this feels so good, and it feels better. And it really is a feeling experience when you're creating something, any kind of design, whether it's really anything, home or fashion, or even courses and classes, when you're putting things together. So I think it's maybe a little bit of wanting to control an area.
Yeah.
And so it just felt really good to like, I'm going to put this here and I'm going to put this here and I'm going to flip it around. I'm going to test it to see, does this feel good? You probably have moved things around and then stepped back and went, nah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right? Doesn't look right. It doesn't feel right. So it is somewhat energetic, and also I think, intuitive. And then also I think just creating something and getting an instant like, oh, yeah, that's good. That feels good.
It's funny you say that because, like, in the room that I'm in my house, I've turned it. It's an office studio, and I had a friend of mine came over last week, and he walked in. He walked through my house and came in. He walked in, and he's like, "Oh my god, the energy in here! Like the things I have on the walls and stuff. Like, when I started off doing the podcast in June, the background behind me, I had a bunch of Rocky Balboa movie posters because I'm a real big Rocky buff, and that Eye of the Tiger." And then I was like, I sort of need to change it up a little bit. And so, I have changed it up. As you see behind me, it's different now. There's some, plaques and some Think Big license plates and stuff behind me. So the energy in the room has changed just in the, 7 months or so that I've been doing it. But you're right. Energy is just amazing.
Yeah, it really is. I had one of my, and this is something I've done for years. I actually did this as a coach at one point, where I would redo somebody's, either their whole home or an office space or someplace that they didn't feel was, felt good. And I had one of my best friends, she works from home and she's a therapist, and she has a big organization now. And she bought this home, and I, in 1 second, walked in her office and I was like, uh-uh. And she's like, I know, but I don't know. And we flipped things around, and she's like, wow. It literally in 15 minutes, the
Really?
feeling of, she's like, I would never have put my desk in this direction. I would never have moved things in that way, but it just like comes just like that, like in an instant. And when you have really close friends that are like, yeah, we'll do whatever you say.
Yeah. Yeah. And it changed the whole aura of the room.
Totally. So that was I spent a couple weeks with her, and that moment was like the best moment to see her just light up with, she's like, God, this is gonna feel so good to work with my clients. Just where she was able to look out versus where she was looking before, just all of it. And it just, I don't know, makes me really happy.
And think about the difference that's going to make. And it's probably already made in her business.
Yeah.
because, if she's not comfortable in her own office, her room, obviously her clients are definitely not going to be comfortable either. That's going to come out.
Yeah, for sure. And think about, just us not being comfortable in our life. Like there's a lot of people that are not comfortable at their job. They're
Right.
kind of a different person at the job because, you have to sort of fit into the norm there. And then you may not exactly be completely comfortable with certain family members or some friends, or so you're sort of living in this state of discomfort, and it may be low level discomfort that you don't even realize is troublesome or bothersome, but it's there. And when you're free from that, and that's really been a huge piece of the entrepreneur journey, which I didn't even know was going to be a personal development trip. Like I
Right.
had no idea. But you learn, this is sort of like an uh-huh, and this is a and uh-huh, And I have found that the more that I tap into what feels good and what feels gooder and what feels even better, and that the unfolding of that is always something good. Always.
Awesome. Quote: Ilyse is a dream whisperer and listens with her soul, hearing what's often not said, connecting in deep, soul felt ways. Unquote. How have you been able to do that so well?
You know, I think some of it is just inbred, just how my human being is. Um, and, probably a series of not the most comfortable situations when I was young. I lost my father when I was a baby. My mother remarried when we were six. I was six, my sister seven, my brother 8.5. And so going, getting a whole new family, a father, all this. So I sort of can feel when someone isn't feeling themselves. I could feel it. I could sense it. And it in creating or holding that space for somebody to exhale and it be okay to say whatever it is that may be scary to say. I've had people for years say, I've never told anybody this in my life. I've never said this out loud before. And there's a freedom and a healing in witnessing somebody else being their true, authentic self. And how that came to be is probably part design and part life experience.
It's amazing with our life experiences. Some of them that we realize on a conscious level, but some of them are so, on a subconscious level that we're not even aware of.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And I have found that the way to really change your life is in this wake state, in this awareness of like, ooh, that landed wrong, or that didn't feel right, or ooh, that bothered me. But then explore it to find out why was that. And a lot of times we don't stay still enough to ask ourselves, like, what was that about? Like, why did that? But we project out that person was
True.
rude, that person's a jerk, that person's got issues, but why is that affecting us in a way that it landed on us in a certain way? And the more that we really pay attention to what's being told to us, we just ignore it. But when we really pay attention to it, you really can create a beautiful life.
And
Really
you
can.
also never know when you talk about how, people say, oh, that person was a jerk or, act a certain way. You never know what kind of day that person's having or that
Yeah,
a moment that person's having.
absolutely. Absolutely. So it's a real learning and just being incredibly empathetic and just void of really trying to let go of, and it's been a practice to really notice judging, notice judgment, notice barriers, notice it. And that's, I feel like that wake state of like, when people say they're woke, it's living in a state of really paying attention to self. Um, because I think that is the pathway to changing your life. If you want to change your life, if you
Right.
want to enrich your life, if you want to make a big move, not everybody wants to.
Yeah. Some people are comfortable where they're at.
Yeah, and that's okay too.
Absolutely. It's okay too.
Yeah.
If you would tell the audience a little bit about what happened to you in 2014 that, changed your life, where you decided that you wanted more out of life than what you had at the time. And you knew that even at the age that you were, that you could make a major shift in the direction that you wanted to go in.
Yeah. Well, I think you're referring to, I was diagnosed with,
Yes.
it was one of the first medical issues that I had, and I was
Right.
diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, and took many, many months to discover what it was. And I really was, it was scary, it was just really scary. And I thought, this is definitely a wake up call. And I think we all get them. And it's a matter of whether or not we really lean into it, or if it's just in that moment, like that's it. When I get to the other side, almost like making a deal with God, when I get to the other side of this, I'm going to do all these things. And I did do some of them, and then reverted back to sort of living in a little bit of a coma. And then I got another wake up call in 2018. And that one was even scarier because there was something with my brain.
Oh,
And
wow.
I thought, wow, this was really the first time I ever wrote something to my daughter. I was preparing for, if I'm not going to be here, I got to prepare. You got to get your shit together. And when I got through that, that was a massive turning point, because I literally sat down. I could see it in my mind's eye exactly where I was, and I wrote down the life that I was going to have. And I didn't know when or how it was going to happen, how I was going to lose the weight, how I was going to have this business be successful, how I was going to talk the way I want to talk and be the way that I want to be. I had no idea how I was going to do it, but I knew that I was going to find a way. And I just set off on a quest to be the woman who could live a life that felt really good in all these different aspects. Not, well, you get this, but you don't get that. You can have that, but you can't have this. No, I decided, you know what? I'm going to have it friggin' all. And let's go see what that is like. And I've been on that quest ever since.
It's amazing when you're talking about how you did certain things and then you reverted back to some of your old behaviors. And we do that all the time. I know I'm guilty of that myself many a times. I went on a quest from March 29th of 21 to March 29th of 22 and lost 190 pounds in a year. Now,
Wow.
I was an obsessive idiot working out 3 to 5 hours a day, drinking a gallon of water a day, which is great, but I overdid it. And even on the
Yeah.
weekends, I was doing 6, 7 hours of cardio sometimes. So I lost it quick because of that, but that isn't sustainable in the
Yeah.
long term. And so what ended up happening is after that got done, it was like, okay, now what? And I started reverting back to some of the old habits of behavior of the eating and stuff. And I've gained a significant, not all of it, close to it, but a significant amount of the weight back. And so, but I'm aware of it now. And it's figuring out how to find that balance.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And that's such a huge accomplishment and such a great awareness that I did it, but I could not ever sustain that. And so, how do I do it in a sustainable, repeatable, easeful way
Yeah.
that is natural for my human to be able to do forever? And that's asking a different question, right? That's
Right.
not, I want to get this goal. It's, I want to get this goal in this kind of way. I want to feel this kind of way in my life. And it's interesting that you bring that up, because one of my things was I had been on a diet for 40 years. I really realized, like, I have been dieting. I have been trying to be less of myself physically for 40 years. That's a long freaking time.
Yeah.
And so I decided I wanted to be in a body that I loved in a way that felt really good, that I could eat what I wanted, that I could move my body the way that I wanted, no burpees, no crazy, because I would do all of that stuff and I would get the result. But to your point, I couldn't sustain it. I couldn't. It was impossible to sustain. And so then it would go back and then I'd feel awful again and it would just start the cycle again. But on this pathway, I really started to ask myself really simple questions like, are you really hungry? And I'd be like, no. Well,
Just
what are
bored,
you?
maybe.
Yeah. Like, I'm kind of pissed about what happened 20 minutes ago. Okay, well, let's talk about that. And I would have these, if anybody was with me, they would think I was literally out of my mind, but I needed to talk to myself to discover what is going on because I didn't do that. I just was, Googling how do I lose as much as possible, but I didn't really ask myself what's up here, what's going on here, what would feel better than this? And the more that I did self inquiry, the easier it all was.
You talk about that diet for 40 years, and obviously now, just after the new year, television is bombarded, Nutrisystem, Weight Watchers, whatever it is, Golo. And so many of those things, if you follow those programs, they work, but they're not sustainable long term. And those diet companies know it. It's brand marketing. They know exactly what they're doing. They tug at your heart with the emotions and things like that too. And like I said, if you follow them, they probably, whatever, Jenny Craig, they probably all work, but they know that people can't stay on them. And then they end up coming back and doing them over and over and over again. They lose the weight, get off of them. They don't teach you, most of them at least, do not teach you how to have that balance and eat properly. They
Yeah.
just, it's all about marketing and getting people on it and saying, okay, we got you on it. Now you've done it. You get off of it. Oh, you're going to gain the weight back. Oh, you better get back on it again.
Yeah. It is. It's a huge industry. I mean, weight loss is an enormous industry. So it really is. And I think, like everything, it is a personal discovery. What is going to work for me? What is going on with me? And even though a lot of that could sound very selfish to people, because I have had people ask me, like, it feels like I'm going to just become this really like selfish person. It's like, yeah, you kind of are for a
Yeah,
while and maybe forever in an effort to be your full self. And when you are that, the light that you bring to the world is so not selfish. But you got to start with really taking like the most best care and attention to yourself to bring your best. You really do.
definitely. Great point. You said, quote, my humble promise is when you remove all the noise and obstacles and become the biggest component in your success, success comes, unquote. How important is it for someone, to be able to get those barriers out of the way so they can focus on what they need to do in order to be able to excel in their career and life?
I love this question because it's really talks about how we don't cooperate with what it is that we say we want. And we all do it,
Yeah.
right? I'm going to do this thing. I don't do this thing. I'm going to get up early. I don't get up early. I'm going to go for that walk. I don't go for the walk. I'm going to have that conversation. I don't have the, we all do it. And so who's the barrier? We are because we know the thing to do, but we don't do the thing. And when we start to really cooperate, and I heard this years ago, I don't even remember who the first time I heard say this, but when we decide and deny ourselves of anything, we become the issue. We are the issue. You're the issue. It's like, hello, it's you, you know? And so when you become one of the biggest components in your life to say, I'm going to back myself up. I'm going to back up my self promise. I'm going to back up my whisper. I'm going to do the thing. So many things we just never even tell anybody in fear that if I say it out loud and then I don't do it, I'll look a certain sort of way. But when you start to keep your word to yourself, everything changes. So, and being a business coach online, I help people a lot with LinkedIn and they'll come and they're all ready. And it's like, I was thinking it's probably not going to be, it's like, okay, this is when you just turned on yourself
Yep.
because you were ready and now you allowed the fear, the concern, the what if, the I may not, maybe I'll be the only one that the program doesn't work for, all these doubts jump in the way. And when you are aware of that you're doing it, that's a great thing. But most people do it and they don't even realize it.
And it's making ourselves where we feel we're important enough to ourselves to be able to make everlasting change. And so many people just have to figure out, me included, I know, how to get out of your own way sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, I think this is why people hire a coach or work with a mentor, or seek out somebody that they trust that's not too emotionally, if somebody that's got too much of an emotional charge, it's a little bit more challenging, but somebody that really can see for you what you can't see for yourself, because we all have blind spots. We
Yeah.
all do. We can't see everything. We just can't. And so that's the really, when you really find somebody that you jive with, that you feel like, you know what, I could really share myself with this person. I'm going to do the dance. I'm going to do the do. I'm going to do it. Your life does change.
It does, and look what you've done. So that obviously you're proof that it does. So you're able to, tell your students and your clients that, and be able to back it up by what you've done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Quote: I had a whole different ending to my corporate career in mind. I'd returned from my trip from India and New York, the same city as the corporate office. I'd pre-planned to stay in New York for a week to get caught up and announce my departure. That would be the week I'd resign, wearing a beautiful dress with my hair blown out, looking gorgeous. That never happened. Instead, I was read a statement by my new boss letting me know I was being terminated. It's the best thing that could have ever happened, unquote. I do not believe in coincidences, Ilyse, at all. So I think that happened exactly the way it was supposed to have happened. Tell us a little bit about that day and how it helped shape your future.
Yeah. So there's some of it that I can't talk about for
Sure.
legal reasons, but the gist of, I was side hustling for quite some time. So I was very upfront with my company that I was a coach, that I had my own business. I really wanted to be the company's coach, but it wasn't, there was no budget for it. So they, just did, yeah, we really need development, but like not yet. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll do it on my own. And I was very upfront. So I never hid out, that I had another business.
Right.
And I ran the West Coast office, and I've often felt like kind of like the prom queen in some ways, like decided prom queen. But I would come to town and it just felt like there was just such an excitement and an energy in the room. And oftentimes meetings would not happen unless I was in New York, whether it was with vendors or other buyers, or so I really had a very beautiful spot in the company. And new management came in, and when I knew. I knew, I knew I was dead woman walking. I just didn't know how it would unfold. And it unfolded in a really, unpleasant way. But I was able to really see that when I look back now, that was October, the end of October in 2019. Knowing myself the way that I do, had that not happened and COVID happened and we were able to start working from home, it would have been so much easier for me to run my business, because on work hours, I was working. I wasn't taking my phone out and doing stuff during the day. I had an assistant, virtual assistant, that took care of some things. But I know myself to know, letting go of that big of a salary and bonuses and benefits and all the things, I would have stayed. Even though I put a date on the calendar, and even though I was making way more in my side hustle business than I gave myself that line in the sand. When you hit this revenue, you're going to quit. I hit that revenue long earlier, but I couldn't let it go. I wanted it all. I wanted the big salary and the benefits and all the comfort of knowing that I had that every 2 weeks, come
Right.
just in big bucks. And I wanted the business. And the universe knows, like my inner being, like it happened for a reason. They ended up closing the whole office. So it was sort of like, we'll knock that one out, and then we'll knock this one out. And then they just closed the entire office, which was the original plan. And did it feel good? No, it didn't feel good. Was it the best thing that could have happened? Yeah, it was.
Had to make you at the time, I'm sure that had to be very difficult, even though you were making a lot of money with your side hustle. But now, looking 3 years later, 3 years and a few months later, wow, what a
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah. What's interesting? That first month, the month of November, was $41,000 in my coaching business. And whether it was adrenaline, whether it was like, holy crap, this is really happening. It was obviously like I'd never had a 40K month before. So that was huge. And I didn't repeat it in December and January. Like it didn't repeat.
Sure.
But it showed me this is what's possible for you. This is what you can do when you're not doing that during the day. You can do this, and you could do so much more. And the people that I've met and the experiences that I've had I literally am living a completely different life. As I told you before we started, I'm in an Airbnb for a month in this beautiful home in a beautiful location. I wouldn't be doing that if I was at my corporate job,
Right.
you know. So, it's really afforded me a different life. And yeah, it was hard when it happened. It felt like a betrayal. And for so many people that have been in corporate for so many years, you give your life to the cause. And whether it was working in the morning before work, working during work, working after work, working on the weekend, working on vacations, working when I was sick, I would do whatever it took to be relevant, stay relevant, and be in great graces. I would do anything. And it that that I paid a price for that. I did. I paid a price for that.
It's amazing in the corporate world. And so many times when an employee is putting in so much and giving so much to the company and all that effort and energy. And they look at it like, oh, I'm a big part of this. But a lot of times the bigwigs in the company don't look at the people the same. And so, you probably took it, personally because it meant so much to you. But sometimes there's this corporate decisions these people just can make. And, they don't have any really, a lot of times they don't have any really regard for the people that's affecting. And sometimes they do, but a lot
Yeah.
of times they just don't.
Yeah, I've been in the room because I was in that level of management. I've been in the room in those conversations where it's like, yeah, there goes that one, and it's like that's somebody's life.
Yep.
That's somebody's career. It's somebody's self-esteem. It's how they view themselves in the world. It's so much more than just that. And when you work with a company that actually has a that fiber of really caring about people being in the positions that are best for them and moving people around to really find the home for them that's going to be the best. It's a great place to be. I'm not anti-corporate at all.
Right.
I think it's a great path for a lot of people. I will say that having a 30-year-old daughter and so many in her age range she's just not signing up for a corporate job. It's like she saw through her lifetime what the toll was, the what I often refer to as what have you done for me lately culture of, performing and performing, but then I think I'm on the hot seat there. Okay, performing and constantly trying to outdo yourself. And it takes a toll. And I think that I see it in her. She's very driven, but not for a company, for herself, for her
Right.
own, creating her own life. And I think a lot of kids my age group that have seen their parents just, at least in the US, where, in other countries they have much more time off for things and they are expected to take that time off. And when you have a baby, you get way more time off. So there's a lot of differences culturally for US based workers, corporate workers that have devoted their lives and then they could be snuffed out.
In just a
It's
second. And like you talked about, it's people's lives. They have to go home and tell their husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend or significant other what happened that day and then figure out, okay, what do I do from here? And how am I going to find another job? I mean, there's so much more to it on an
yeah.
empathetic and sympathy level that just doesn't click with so many people.
Yeah, absolutely. And for some, they stay in that loss forever. They'll stay in the loss, like just like going through a breakup and never getting over it. It's
Yeah.
like having something really significant happen and not really being able to metabolize what that was and find the peace in what that was to be able to grab the lesson, grab what was there for you to learn and move on. And some people don't have that skill yet. They don't have that emotional awareness, that success system within themselves, emotional intelligence, often referred to be able to process, like, what the heck was that?
Yeah.
And see your role in it. Like, I had a role in that too. And we all do. We're not, I don't, that victim, this happened to me. I was a cooperative component in that whole thing. So
And taking
yeah,
that personal responsibility is so important.
yeah, absolutely. And the personal responsibility, and also participating in what it is, fully participating in what it is that you want next for yourself, whether it's fully participating in a relationship, fully participating in your business, but being on the side, "Oh, I don't know, I don't really want to get hurt. Oh, I don't want to really get a job again. What if that happens?" So you're rehearsing and living in the past. And when it repeats itself, it's like, oh, yeah, I was kind of afraid that was going to happen. It's like, no, you actually created that,
Yes.
right? By
That's
holding
exactly.
yourself back, by, maybe not giving your all. Like, so we have these things that we repeat over and over. It's just fascinating. Being human, I think, is fascinating.
Definitely. You have so many testimonials that you've gotten from clients of yours, and I want to read a few of them today. Kaylee Victoria Fazan, founder of the International Retail Academy, said of you, quote, "Stepping out of corporate to launch my own business would not have been as successful if it weren't for the coaching, guidance, and support from Ilyse. Over the months, I have trodden through some messy moments, and Ilyse was there to pull me through it. Generous with knowledge, patient, and emotionally wise, Ilyse comes with my most highest recommendation," unquote. You talked about you left corporate, you become very successful, so 100% it can be done. However, I'm sure, and you've sort of, referred to this a little bit, there are people that you work with that sometimes they, want to do it themselves, they leave corporate, might not have the same confidence as you have. And, what are some of the things that say to people when you're working with them at the very beginning to let them know that if they do want the success badly enough, it's out there for them too?
Yeah. I think it's a combination of getting really clear on your life map. What do you want your life to be? Right? You created this corporate career. You've done really well. People don't ever give themselves a lot of credit for everything that they've done. So
True.
oftentimes people feel like they're starting over, but I really feel like you're starting at your highest peak. You're not starting over. You're taking all your wealth of knowledge and all the things that you've done and all your experiences and all your wins and all your losses and everything. And you're bringing all of that wisdom and all of that magic that is only you can do, only you, right? Like, nobody else could be me or do me or sound like me, just like nobody can do anybody else. And that is the magic that we all have, is that there's one copy of each one of us. And so, when you own everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it, because like in Kaylee's example, she was going through something that was not favorable, but I had experience in that not favorable thing. And so I was able to share that. And one might think, oh, I don't know, that's not going to maybe put me in the best light. It was in such service to her growth. And so it's all the way that we look at our life in its totality. But oftentimes we look at this little moment in time. We don't look at the totality of, like, I mean, people will tell me their accomplishments and I'm like, what? You've done what? Like, I'm blown away. And they're like, yeah, I know. I'm just kind of scared. It's like, do you even realize how freaking amazing you are? It's like, how many times do you have somebody actually listen to everything that you've done, good and bad, and could see it in such a way that is like, you're magic. You've got so much to offer. And when people can really tap into that energy for themselves, you really do become quite unstoppable.
And you talked about, you opening up, and when Kaylee told you about the situation and you had experienced something similar, being transparent and letting yourself be vulnerable with your clients has to make a big difference.
Huge. Yeah. And I think it's something that I'm often told by my clients is, first of all, I don't like adoration coaching. Like, oh my God, you're so amazing. Like, no, I'm human. I've
Right.
done things really great and I've done some things really shitty, and all of it is going to be in service to you getting what it is that you want. So if I only package the really good things and curate it in such a way that I'm just sting, so wonderful, I'm not really relatable and or honest. And there's so much more to offer by offering a perspective, even on the crappy stuff. Sometimes that's even the better stuff.
People appreciate that more. Like, I was talking about when losing weight, at the very end, after the 1 year, I posted the before picture at 403 pounds, shirt off, fully vulnerable to my 5,000 or so Facebook friends. And then the after picture at 212.6, shirt on, but still, you saw the humongous difference. But I allowed myself to be vulnerable. And I was like, man, I couldn't even. Now, would I have posted that picture before when I first started a year before? No, I wasn't ready to do it then. But because I'd made the change and everything, I was ready. But it is about allowing yourself to be vulnerable.
Yeah, yeah. And to your point, a lot of it is timing. So if I'm going through something right this minute, right, I'm not going to share it right this minute with my clients. I need to go through it. I need to process it. I need to. Now,
Yeah.
I'm not talking about 6 months from now. I don't need that long. I think a couple, 3 days a week. But I let them benefit from whatever it is that I'm learning. And if I am doing this and then I start to do this, I want them to know what this was and what this became, because it will help. It will help. And that's, it's really trusting the timing of everything. So to your point, trusting that it was the right time for you to share it at that point, as opposed to at the beginning point.
And it was the right time. And it was great to get all the people commenting and saying, wow, that's incredible. It makes you feel good. Do that. We become that society where we want those likes and we want that recognition stuff that you and I grew up in a completely different time, in the 80s and stuff, where it was nothing like that. If you wanted to ask somebody out, you had to call them on the phone. You had to talk to them in
Imagine,
person. There was no texting. There were pay
imagine.
phones. I mean, it's just a completely different world. And I think sometimes I look back on it, obviously a much simpler world. But I'm glad I grew up as a kid in the 80s. I would not want to grow up today and have my whole life based on social media and texting.
Yeah, it's definitely different. It's funny. I can almost remember, like, I mean, it's quite some time ago, but realizing, like, why is this person calling me? Like, can't they just text? Like, a call was an intrusion. And I thought,
Right.
what? How did this happen? Like, how did this happen? But, you start to kind of integrate into what's familiar in the culture now.
Yeah.
And, like, so it's all in sort of hindsight, like, wow, we had phones in the house. Like, I mean, my parents still have a phone, but like a lot of people, I don't have a phone in my house. I wouldn't even think about getting a phone. So strange.
I
Yet
know.
grow up like on the phone.
Right. I mean, texting, I want to say it came really started big in the early 2000s is when it started happening. And the old cell phones, you could actually text without looking at it because the buttons were raised buttons. You knew where everything was. All right, I can, you know what I mean? Now you can't do that with an iPhone. Now you could talk into it, which is obviously much safer if someone's driving, but yeah, it's just a different time. But you're right. You become accustomed to what's going on at the time.
Yeah, yeah, it's fascinating. It really is. And I think about my mom's experience. She's obviously much older than I am. And so to see all the things that have happened in a lifetime, we've had so many things happen in our lifetime and will keep happening.
Yep. You know, in 2019, your word of the year was visibility. Why was that word, so important to you? And how did, visibility, change your life and your career?
That's such a great question. And it's not just visibility online, or being seen or heard and all of that, which was part of it. But the other part of it was like really having visibility to who I am and what I want and how I want my life to be, and being aware, seeing, just having so much, but really being a seer for myself first, but then also for other people, like really understanding, why we're here and why am I here? What am I doing? What is the purpose of all of this? So it was visibility in many different aspects, not just the online aspect, which was huge. 2019 was just an enormous year, but also insight inside, really that kind of visibility was really what that was about.
You had some videos that went like super viral, didn't you? Have like 100,000, 200,000 views on some of those videos.
They were articles that I wrote on LinkedIn. And interestingly enough, I actually
That's
was,
even more impressive. Excuse me. Even it was an article that went viral. Wow.
there were several of them. And what was really interesting about it was I, I didn't really know anything about like the algorithm, or like, I just had no idea, like that was not in, and it wasn't like the days of TikTok and Reels where like every fourth thing goes viral. It was a written article. And I was in a coaching school, to where the school that I got certified. And when that happened, they kicked me out of the group. There are thousands of coaches. And reason being is that, first of all, they decided that I was too successful to be in the group, which made no sense to my mind. Like, don't you want people that are doing well to, like,
Right.
it's such a
Right.
stamp of like the program. And also questioning, how did I do that? How did I make those, as though I literally had said, now I don't know, maybe there are people that know how to do that, but I was like, are you kidding me? I could barely turn my computer on. Like, what are you talking about? And so there was this accusation that I had done something to make myself go viral, which was, laughable to me.
Right.
Even today, I don't know how to make myself go viral. And I have a lot of content that gets, anywhere from 90,000 impressions to 20, 40, 70, like big numbers, but not doing anything. I didn't trick the system. And it felt like, kind of tying back to what we were saying, it reminded me of like feeling betrayed again. Like, wow, like I was betrayed in this instance, and I was betrayed, but was I expecting to be betrayed by an organization or by a group, or was there a fear in some way that I was anticipating, or so it really gave me some pause to say, like, wow, that's kind of interesting that I had this betrayal, and then like, what's the consistent thing? I am the consistent thing. So some I really had to look at was that, did I have an expectation for things to go my way, or did I have an expectation for things to maybe not work out? And I really saw that in a lot of ways, I had an expectation. The diet's not going to work. The relationship's probably not going to work. This is probably not going I'll give it a shot, but it's probably not going to work in some way. And so I was sort of living in an expectation of less and lack, and not getting what it was that I wanted. And I really had to look at that. I was actually conjuring up those thoughts. I was thinking those things, and then
In,
would have an experience that would say, oh, yeah, I guess I was right about that. Yeah. Yeah, I guess I was right about that too.
yeah,
See what I'm saying?
I do. And when you did those articles and it went viral and you got kicked out, I'm sure obviously that wasn't your expectation. I mean, you were thinking that people would be like, wow, you went viral. Congratulations. Way to go.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, hey, you're going to have a conference? Like, I could, come and talk to people about the power of LinkedIn, and, to help them grow their business and get out there. It's like, no, you're out. It's like, I'm what? How did that happen?
Crazy.
Yeah. So, but I really, it was not good. It wasn't a good experience. It didn't feel good. Even just revisiting it, I don't particularly like it, but it was a good learning in, what am I expecting? Now, was I expecting that to happen? No, but did it surprise me? No. And why didn't it surprise me? Because I had an underlying theme that things can go off track really fast. I have evidence of it. And so that was just another example of something like, oh, I thought this was going to happen and now this happened instead. So I had to really break that, like consciously break that cycle of looking for how things could really go haywire and really focus myself on the outcome that I do want. What do I want to happen? How do I want to feel? And the more that I focus on that and I minimize, not to say that I never have a negative thought or a what if thought, of course, but the ratio is like this to this, where before it was like, sort of 50-50, maybe 60-40, hedging my bets,
Right,
how is this
right.
all going to work out? But when I really just minimize, like I would catch myself like, whoa, 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 what are you thinking about right now? That's that wake state. Like, wow, I've just been like going over in my head for the last, I don't know, half an hour about some bad scenario that hasn't happened, but I'm afraid that it might. I mean, how many times do we do that?
Yeah, all the
And
time.
yeah, so catching myself and saying, wait, 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 what are you doing right now? What are you thinking about right now? And can you pick a better thought that would feel better? Could you go outside? Could you turn on the radio? Could you distract yourself from this thing that's gone off in your mind for something got triggered and it kind of went off in my mind? So I have literally been retraining my thinking.
And to have that conscious ability that you're able to do that now over, I guess the last few years, a lot of people don't have that, and I'm sure that really helps you out a lot when you're working with people to let them, you can't do that for them, but you
Yeah.
can bring it to the forefront to where they realize that it's there in them too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of my signature personal development course is called Consciously Confident. And it's really understanding, like, what are you thinking about? Like, what is your mind set on? What channel are you on? Are you on the channel of like, oh yeah, this life is hard for me because is that really your channel? Or did you pick that up from, you know, news media or family or old thoughts or is that really the channel that you want to be on? And can you lower the volume of that and find a channel and a frequency that feels better, that will give you actually what it is that you want? So understanding the control of our mind, if thoughts become things, we're creating so much all the time. And so, it really kind of goes through the mind, the heart, forgiveness, really understanding where we're blocked in our own, whether it's forgiving ourselves or other people or an organization, really kind of dusting everything off. And it's an incredible course. I mean, I'm a huge fan of it, of course,
Of
but
course.
it really takes people through the mind, the heart, the soul, and our relationship to money, because there's so much that we either can expand in or retract away from when it comes to financial resources. That's really an important conversation.
I can see why that course obviously must be very successful for you, especially with, what you've just talked about today so far.
Yeah, yeah. So, and to your point earlier, do are we or is the average whatever that is, but so when I first start working with somebody, are they all dialed into all these conversations? Generally the answer is no, not even close. And so it's a journey. It's really a personal development journey, which I think in a lot of ways people have thought, like, if it's personal development, then I do it on my own. It's self-development. But actually, we're meant to do things with each other. We're meant to be in community with each other, witness each other, hear each other. And so, yes, it's personal development, but we truly are meant to do this kind of stuff with other people.
You said, quote, what sets the work I do with clients apart is the focus on who the client is. We can spend a whole lot of time on each individual story and go down a whole lot of rabbit holes, or we can get right down to the heart of the matter and get shit done. And you begin living the most epic life imaginable. Most clients that work with me are ready to surrender, which does not mean give up. It actually means to hand it over to something much greater, to let it all go, to release the never ending storytelling of what was and begin to create what will be, unquote. Many people, they want that epic life that you talk about. The big majority of them, have a hard time figuring out what steps to take to get started. That's where you come in, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I think some of it is just, questions. What do I stand for? What don't I what won't I stand for? What is like that line in the sand? What do I believe? Like really looking at it, what do I want? If you could have anything, what would that be? I remember the first time I was asked that question, and I was like, I don't know. I don't think that's like, why would I even think about that? I don't think it's even available to me. So why would I spend any time creating my epic work situation or my epic life if I think I'm just going to have groundhogs year after year? And it's kind of, I'm just getting through it. And when it was a sobering, really almost sad thought when I was like, wow, I have never put any emphasis or energy into how I would create my life if I was the architect, if I believed that I was the creator. I had never put any time into that. But I could put a whole lot of time into problems and issues and worries and I could anxiety and I could put a lot of emphasis into that. But what if I changed the conversation? And that was huge because I started to like, wow, I'd get up whenever I wanted to, and I would take the dogs on a walk over the lagoon, and I would look around. I wouldn't be in a hurry. I'd come home and I'd have a beautiful, delicious breakfast. Somebody would cook it for me. I don't know, a partner or maybe a chef. I don't know, somebody. And I'd have time and space, and I would be with my clients, and I'd be so focused, and there would be just beautiful work being done. I would take really good care of myself, and I would rest when I wanted to and do things when I wanted to, and I'd see the world. And I was just like, oh my God, this like just falling out of me because I gave myself permission to have a life that I wanted instead of tolerate a life that was like not bad, but certainly not like fabulous.
Right.
It was okay. It was good. Like, how are you doing? I'm good. What about you? Good. Okay. All right. So what's new? Not a whole lot. Like that was my life for most of my life.
And that's what we do. I mean, when you talk, hey, how you doing? Good. How are you? I'm good. Right. What's up? Oh, not much. It's the same answers. They're programmed. They're ingrained habits and patterns of behavior that we all have.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is a deliberate, intentional desire to want to explore your life. And when you do that, the universe responds. You are the universe. You are the center of your universe. And your thoughts and your behaviors and your patterns and everything that you're doing, your habits and your judgments and everything make up what happens in your life. And when you put an emphasis on what would my life be like if this, what would that feel like? Who would I become to have that in my life? Like I started to do videos. I was like nauseous doing them, sweating like a pig, doing them over and over and over and deleting them because they were so awful. I didn't even sound like myself or look like myself. I was like terrified. But who I became was somebody willing to participate in the journey of what could be available for me. And I found that it's limitless, really.
And you're able to help other people see that too.
Yeah, because when you tap into, well, could I do that? Well, yeah, if I did it, like who am I?
Right.
It's like working stiff at corporate America for 30 years. Like who am I? But yeah, so it's really taking people on a journey to themselves, to the truth of themselves. And it's like peeling an onion. It's like, oh, here's another layer. And oh, here's another layer. Oh, this layer doesn't feel, oh, this one feels better. And you just keep unpacking unpacking and creating, really. It's a little bit of unpacking, but it's more creating. What do you want? What do you want?
And you have to help people have to figure that out. Sometimes they can figure it out on their own, but many times they need help and they need direction. They need a coach like you to help them, figure that out, where they want to go.
Yeah. Yeah. And really, I think a great question to ask. I was watching the Anthony Bourdain documentary, and there was a question asked during that. We both looked at each other like, wow, what a great question. Do you want to change the way you feel in your life? Are you willing to change the way that you feel in your life? Is that something that interests you? And if the answer is, yeah, I do want to change the way I feel in my life, there's so much that you can do.
This has been spectacular. I have so many other things I do want to talk to you about. Will you come back for a part two?
Yeah, for sure. I'd love
I
to.
mean, there's so much more. I mean, we could go on probably for a few hours here today, but I don't want to keep you more than an hour. And I'd love to bring you back for part two because, like I said, I have so much more that I want to talk to you about.
Yes, for sure. I would love to. Thank you for even asking that.
It's been my pleasure. I really appreciate you coming on today. This has been great. A lot of great messages out there for people that I know it's going to help a lot of people. And then hopefully they'll be able to connect some people to you too.
Absolutely. I have so many resources. Many of them are unpaid resources, and of course my services, but for somebody to just dip their toe in and start going down the path of what's available for them, it's a beautiful journey.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to having you back on again sometime soon because a lot more good stuff to talk about with you.
Awesome. Thank you
Thanks so
so much.
much, Ilyse. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.